The Charge Blade is by far the most deceptive weapon in the Monster Hunter series. Lots of people straight up lie about it, saying things like it's super complicated to use, or that it's the hardest weapon in the series to learn. And I'm here to tell you guys that they're wrong. The Charge Blade is by far the easiest weapon to pick up in the Monster Hunter series, and is a litmus test for people who actually play the Mon Hun games. It has the simplest game plan out of all the other weapons. All this weapon wants to do is charge its files and get into Savage X mode. And in the recent installments, it's now easier than ever before. Rise just has you holding attack 1 while storing files, and Wilds auto-installs you into Sav X mode when you focus strike any wound. Side note here, my hunter experienced massive twink death when going from Rise to Wilds, and I think it looks pretty hot. Behave yourself in the comments though. Typically, to get into Savage Axe mode, you need to have your files stored into the shield before activating it. So your goal is to build up files, store them in the shield, and then profit afterwards. This results in you unlocking the Charge Blade's biggest move, that being the AED, or Amped Elemental Discharge. I could go a lot more in depth about this weapon, but the basis is that your end goal is getting into this state and bonking the monster on the head with this move. The way Capcom goes about designing this weapon and the successes behind it is due to the fluidity of its moveset. You could pretty much cancel any move into another one with most weapons, and the Charge Blade is probably the best example of this. But what does all this have to do with ZZZ, and why am I bringing this up? It's because Seth has a Charge Blade, you dingus. You seriously didn't pick up on that by now? Look at the video title. Not only is this true, but I also think that Seth is the perfect example on how not to design a character with a weapon like this. Welcome back to another episode of my series where I talk about ZZZ characters and how they're either peak cinema or the worst thing imaginable. I hosted a poll last weekend asking you guys which character I should cover, and a lot of you guys wanted me to talk about this furball twink. Sorry to those of you who wanted Evelyn, but next week's video will be about her, I promise.
Don't listen to them, please talk about Evelyn.
Alright, screw you guys, here's how to do 6 chain attacks. But in all seriousness, I'm gonna go over why I personally don't like playing Seth anymore, and the problems I have with this kid as well. Before we get started, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing afterwards. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, this Ruby reject is our second defense agent that I'll be covering. And because he's a defense agent, that means he suffers from the identity crisis that is the tank class in ZZZ. I forgot to mention this in my Caesar video, but a major flaw in every defense agent's design has to do with the one thing they all have: their shield. And said shield that they provide usually has an important buff tied to it. Caesar's anti-interrupt and attack buff, Ben's crit rate buff, and Seth's anomaly proficiency buff. However, the issues with the buffs being tied to the shield is that they're tied to the shield. They don't linger after it's gone. Yes, I know that Seth's M1 gives him a lingering effect. Shut up, I'm getting to that. A shield is supposed to protect the player, but if said shield has important buffs that go away if you lose it, then you're gonna try not to get hit anyway. This is why Caesar's attack buff on her shield is counterintuitive. It makes playing Reckless, the entire reason you spend money on the damn character, seem pointless since you'll be losing out on a pretty important buff if you just let the shield go down the moment you get hit. Also, you can't hit me with the don't get hit forehead excuse, because the entire point of a shield is for it to eventually take damage. The main reason shields exist in video games is to protect the player for a short amount of time, so that they can either replenish health or just prevent them from dying. Zenless is a game where dying is rarely a problem, so not only is the need for shields very low, but the way how they're implemented contradicts why you'd need one in the first place. Seth fortunately does have an M1 effect where his shield doesn't remove its effect immediately once it's gone, and it actually stays on the character until it's depleted fully. This is good. It sucks that it's tied to an extra copy, but at least it's only M1, so it's pretty realistic. I'd say that this is pretty good tank design in a game like this. So what's exactly wrong with it? Well, its biggest problem is that it can only be applied to either himself or the person that quick assists after his enhanced basic attack. This sucks for 2 reasons. 1, because it's locked behind his personal resource gauge, and 2, this buff does not extend to all teammates. Not only does the buff not apply to all teammates, but you actually have to account for the agent placement when making your teams. The agent on the left side of Seth will always be the one that gets the quick assist, so you have to make sure that you place Seth correctly whenever you put your teams together. This isn't a big deal, by the way. It just sucks that only one person can benefit from the AP buff and not the entire team. And quick assisting from the person who has the shield to other members doesn't do anything either. It has to be Seth. I get that he has to have some level of originality rather than, hey, I buff everyone. But I'm just not a fan of how much you have to do to make this character work on the team. And you may think I'm just hating on him because he's a tank, but it's not even that. Okay, it partially is that, but I have many other issues with this main coon than his mediocre shield. First off, this character has the worst additional ability requirement, that being attribute and faction. This pretty much makes him glued to Jane in terms of viable teams.
This is crazy because he's not even best in slot for Jane anymore.
And the worst part is that in non-Jane teams, unless you have Yanagi, this cat is gonna stick out like a sore thumb. Let me stop BSing. It's not that terrible compared to someone like Ben, but the problem stems from the fact that he's an anomaly tank and not a DPS tank. Yes, Anton and Rina can make a low-cost team with him, but what's Anton gonna do with an AP buff in a mono-electric team? Thankfully, most anomaly units are anomaly sexual for one another, but sometimes you're better off running a different character for that team instead of Seth. I mentioned this a while back in my Evelyn and Ben video, but every time you run a defense agent on your team, you're missing out on either an actual stunner or a very much needed support. And in this case, you'd be missing out on a support. Seth can kind of be both, but it's a big asterisk here. Every anomaly character except Miyabi would heavily benefit from the plus 100 AP, but this would almost always have to enforce Jane one way or another. But if you don't have Jane, then he kind of sticks out on teams due to his additional ability. This isn't really a detriment for the anomaly units, but more so for Seth himself, because if he doesn't get his passive, he's losing out on anomaly shred for every attribute, which I'd say is pretty important. Thankfully, 2 anomaly agents are both electric and require electric, so this isn't that bad, but again, he pretty much either enforces Jane or monoshock comps. Jane Seth is fine. It makes Jane a very good agent and also helps make the most of Passion Stick. Don't get me wrong, when it comes to being with Jane, he's absolutely incredible for her. They were made with each other's kits in mind, sorta.
Kind of weird that he gives a shield to a character that doesn't want to get hit anyway, but I guess he just knew how terrible Salcal jump was and didn't bother to fix it.
This is cool and all, but the caveat is that he's literally chained down to this rat when it comes to teams. It's okay to have a niche, it's okay to have specific teams in mind, but my issue is that he's not even best in slot for Jane anymore. Oh, don't look at me like that. Yes, I'm gonna compare, but it's only because the defense class is a contradictory support class if you look at it hard enough. I promise that my next point about Seth won't have me pointing fingers at other agents, so just bear with me a bit longer, okay? Thank you. This isn't Astra shilling or anything, but because Vivian exists now, he is outclassed by not only her, but the first support you get in the game. Ignoring the lesbian here, Nicole's universal defense shred is miles better for Jane. Not only does it make her assaults bigger, but it also applies to both teammates as well. Now, you might be saying that this is also Vivian shilling, but the thing about Nicole is that the defense shred is tied to her base passive, not her additional ability. So in theory, you could have just ran Nicole with another anomaly agent on Jane's team and just not worry about her additional ability just for the defense shred. Nicole's flexibility comes from the fact that you can slap her literally anywhere and still get major use out of her kit. It's just that Jane now has a dedicated reason to put her on a team than ever before. Now the question of whether or not Jane wants either Seth or Nicole is up for debate. You wouldn't want to run both because you'll be losing out on disorder damage due to less disorders. 100 extra AP is very nice, but it's kinda hard to beat a defense shred that's pretty cheap to get online. So I think Nicole just barely edges out over Seth for now. Seth's quick assist niche is also flawed due to the fact that it's tied to a personal resource compared to an EX skill, but I'll go over that shortly in a bit. His W engine is also pretty bad, seeing as it's a selfish engine compared to the other team-wide support engines. It'd be nice if the person who got the shield also got the buffs from the engine, but it's not like I'd be able to know if it does or not. The UI is still atrocious. And before you say anything, because I can see you guys typing in the comments already, yes, I am well aware that Caesar's engine is amazing on him and turns him into an actual stunner, but that is such an unrealistic and expensive expectation for a character like Seth. You shouldn't have to invest into a limited S rank W engine for an A rank just to make them good. They should be decent enough, if not perfect with their own options, and slightly better with premium ones. This is more so helped by the fact that there isn't a standard S-rank defense agent or engine, and there will most likely never be one until they put Caesar on the standard banner in 2 years. I don't care if he can make better use of the effect than Caesar. The average player isn't going to pull a limited S-rank engine specifically for a niche A-rank tank. That's so unrealistic. It'd be one thing if the engine was universally good, like Brimstone or Restrained, but the engine is tied to the smallest class in the game and makes an alright character slightly better. But I'm done talking about his kit. Let's move on to the next reason why I dislike Seth. Seth's in-game moveset is like if you took a charge blade, but if someone slowly unscrewed a few nuts and bolts here and there. It performs like a charge blade, but it feels like it's missing something or just not performing as intended. Not to mention how long it takes him to do literally anything with this damn thing. I think he's tied with Miyabi on how long it takes to do anything moveset wise, but the difference here being that one's actually fun to use and the other one is, I said I wouldn't compare, sorry. My main gripe with Seth comes down to two things. One, his moves taking forever to do, and two, the limitations on when he can EX charge his skill faster. For those of you that don't know, Seth has the ability to charge his EX skill faster outside of certain moves. And if you remember my one thing that I hate about every character in ZZZ video, this is the exact same thing that I said when I got to Seth. The first reason itself is pretty explanatory. The main sequence you want to do on this character is fully charged EX into enhanced basic attack. Normally, I don't like when a character's playstyle is just EX skill then swap off, but Seth makes me wish that this was the case here. And it's not the fact that he takes so long to do everything that's the issue, it's the weird design choice behind when and where you can charge EX skill faster. The only reason you'd want to do a charged EX skill is for the longer combo and days that it does. Other than that, tapping EX skill gives you the same amount of his resolve meter as holding it, so you're only doing this move for the days buildup. Not to mention the weird places where you can shortcut this move too. You can only quickly charge EX skill from his dodge counter and quick assist. They're the same move by the way, and his chain attack and ultimate. They say that you can charge this move faster, but it certainly doesn't feel faster in my opinion. However, they are telling the truth here. The first two examples are fine and make sense, while the second two are just very confusing to me. Doing chain attacks and ultimates will automatically refill a character's specific gauge or meter. Caesar's shields, Pulchris stacks, you get the idea, right? So why would I want to go into an EX skill if I already have resolve meter full? Well, obviously for the days, right? But here's the thing about me. I personally don't like it when I overapply stacks or waste resources when I have them available. So naturally, I always enhance basic first instead of charging the EX skill. Oh, but it's okay, right? Surely you can charge the EX skill faster from the enhanced basic, yeah? I'm gonna blow a vein at this point, good God. Okay, look, I get it. It makes sense as to why you can't do this here. Your notion to quick assist after the move, but why give him the option to charge EX if his resolve meter is already full after either chain attack or ult? It doesn't make sense from a flow standpoint. There's no difference as to how much meter he gains from both holding or tapping EX, and he can't charge the moves faster from moves that looks like he should be able to in the first place. The way he swings around his shield after a fully charged EX skill makes it look like he can combo into another one. But no, I'm supposed to hold the EX skill after chain attack, hold basic after that, and then swap off after? Motherfucker, half the stun timer is gone by this point. Also, in Monster Hunter, if you overcharge your files on your charge blade, you are required to store or spend them because you'll continuously bonk off the monster if you don't. But there's no restriction like this for Seth here, and I'd argue that he needs one. Because there's no overcharged file gimmick on his resolve meter, this means that there's no punishment for overstacking. And if I were to fix Seth myself, I'd give him a way to store more power within the resolve meter. Once he'd EX skill again with full resolve, the meter would flash red and blue like a police siren, and all attacks on the enemy will be physical hits only. This effect would linger until he does his enhanced basic attack. This would enforce the players into spending the meter to do said basic attack. I'd also make it so that he can charge EX faster from the enhanced basic too. That way, it would provide a lot more choice and freedom to the player whilst making Seth a decent stunner considering the options he'd now have. It'd be nice if quick assisting while his meter was supercharged could also give an attack percent buff to the shielded agents too, but a man can only theorycraft now. Thinking about all the ways that they could have made this character better is precisely why I'm upset at him. It doesn't help seeing that his W engine literally wants him to have as much meter as possible. There'll be times where you just need to mag dump everything, but because of the way how Seth works, the game doesn't give you the quickest way to do so. At the end of the day, Seth is not a bad character. Nobody in ZZZ is, unless you're Anton. Nobody really likes you. He just suffers from a confusing kit ruined by general system mechanics and being stuck in the identity crisis class. His copies are cool and whatever, but I just don't care considering how selfish the defense class is in general. And so long as I have Vivian, I have no reason to ever use this character again unless they change his additional ability requirements, thus making him collect dust until I feel bored and lost for it. But to be honest, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't find this character unfun to play at all. It's just annoying when I try to experiment on him and I can't can't do what I'm thinking of in my mind. I see an animation that looks like I can cancel out of, and then I press a button, but then nothing happens, and then all of the dopamine levels just flow outside of my body in the worst way possible. It's not satisfying, and because it's not satisfying, I'm just not gonna play him anymore. I'm not gonna go on a skill expression rant or anything. I'm just disappointed that this character was only designed with one other character in mind and has virtually no type of sauce when it comes to playing him. And that's the video. Next week I'll be going over Miss Chevalier, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. I really appreciate the support you guys have been giving me on my recent videos, and cannot thank you guys enough for it. As always, special shout out to my channel members, The Eth J, Middle Class Bear, Rumi, Bara Fox, Verano, and Bear with Violin. Members get access to my videos a day early, a special role in my Discord, which you should totally join by the way, and priority when it comes to things such as video suggestions, account reviews, or anything else I plan to do in the future. And if you want to support me directly, consider buying me a coffee. It helps keep me well fed and gives me motivation to continue doing videos like these. Leave a like below and tell me what you guys thought about this video. And with that being said, I gotta get started working on the next one. Catch you guys later. Bye bye.